I can't wait to find out about your life story. What inspired you to even start your first agency? But before we get into that, I know you wear so many hats, okay? You are a great dad, a husband, you're a business owner. How do you juggle all of that work-life balance?
It's craziness, to think about that. When you have 3 kids, 9, 7, 4, one on the way, married. My wife and I have moved 9 times in 11 times of being married. And when I say 9 times, I mean 9 times, like legit 9 times. So we moved in California from Granada Hills to Woodland Hills to Encino to trammel. Then we moved to Dallas. Then we moved in Dallas 3 times. Then we just moved to Florida. So lots of crazy things that we have going on. But I think the biggest thing is, when you're asking that question is, years ago, I sat down, I think I was in my late 20s. I sat down and I said, do I even want to be married? I think we don't ask the question, why do you want to get married? A lot of times kind of like, well, I'm at an age that I should be married. I have to get married. Everybody's pressuring, mom, dad, family, friends, others are getting married. I should get married. So a lot of stuff and decisions that we make becomes about should. This is what you should do. And should has a lot of judgment behind it, right? It's got a lot of judgment behind it because it's not would, could, want to, choose to, should. You should do this. So I sat there and I said, I don't know. I don't know if I do want to get married. I don't know if I do. And I said, okay, I think I do want to have a family. I think I do want to run a business, and I'm going to run a business. And here's what I want to do. So then once we did that, my wife and I, at the time I was speaking to a couple different girls, but I was reading a book called 101 Questions to Ask Before You Get Engaged. And I read the book and I said, wow, this is a great book for me. It was phenomenal. And, most men think they know exactly what they want, and we don't. We don't have a clue what we want. Women typically know what they want more than men know what they want. We look more from like, oh my gosh, she's dropped it. She's beautiful. She's this. That's what I want. And then you go to dinner and you talk, you're like, oh, wow, okay, I wish there was more depth. I wish there was more this. So finally I said, okay, this is a very good book for me. So then I went and I shared this book with the ladies I was talking to, and this is not going to work. I don't know about this. I think I'm going to be too difficult for you. And then my wife and I went through it. At the time, it was a Saturday. 6 hours later, I said, this could actually work out. We dated for a year and a half. Then I proposed. Then we got married. And then the reason why I'm answering this question the way I am is because we talked about what the life was going to be. So part of the conversation was, I'm not a 9-to-5 guy. So if you need me to come home at 5 o'clock, I'm not that guy.
This is before you were married or after?
This is on our second date.
Oh,
we're talking.
very good. Okay.
Yeah, this on our second date.
Okay.
So I said, I'm not a 9-to-5 guy, and I'm not and we had known each other for 5.5 years. So it's not like second date, I just met you. We go to a restaurant and I'm telling you, look, we had known each other for 5.5 years. I had seen her date. She had seen me date. And then we were both single and we started going on our, then I said, I have a big vision. I want to get to work. I'm going to be doing 60 to 80 hours a week for a long time, probably till my 70s. I'm not going to slow down. I want somebody to support me. I'm not somebody that's want to be constantly calling, where are you? What are you doing? Who is that? Put me on FaceTime, pick up the phone. How come I'm not that person, so I want that freedom. And then, but if you do that to me, I'm going to give you the world and we're going to be able to do X, Y, Z. So yeah, it's not the craziest life that a lot of people will look at and say, oh my gosh, how do you balance all this stuff? But it's a life we chose to live and we're loving it.
And now, Patrick, I have to say though, being so straightforward the way you were with your wife in the beginning stages, that's how men should be. No playing games, no beating around the bush. Say how it is. Doesn't matter if you dated 5 years or not. You have to say it. Don't sugarcoat it. I'm just a very straightforward person, and I would like the same in return. So I appreciate what you did, and it made your life so much easier with her.
There's no question. And by the way, here's the thing. I was also the single guy that would say, I don't want to date, but if you want to have some fun, I'm very open to that. Right. I don't have any desire to be committed to a girl right now. But if you want us to go travel because we get along really well and have a good time, I'm good with that. I think everything is just avoiding any form of games. And I don't know, from my experience, my name is not Mel Gibson from the movie What Women Want, so I don't have all but from my experiences, being a straight shooter, they actually appreciate women more than trying to play games.
Absolutely. Now let's dive into you serving our country, a U.S. Army veteran. I thank you for your service. What made you get into serving our country? And then how did you transition to becoming an entrepreneur? I know you don't really have a formal education. So what made you think like, you know what, this is the route? And did you have any corporate positions in between from being a US veteran to becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, great question. So military, a guy named Jesus Guerra started recruiting me at 14 years old. And he would say, but military discipline, my personality, 1.8 GPA, I don't do well with too many, so well, you're going to love the military because when you put on the uniform and you go in the mall, it gets everyone's attention. And he kept saying this to me over and over and over again. And he said this for years. So eventually I'm like, yeah, this could be an ideal situation. So then I'm on my sister's place. I asked her to let me live with her for a couple weeks. I'm on my sister's place. One night, we partied till like 4:30 in the morning. I wake up in the morning. I go outside to get in my car to go to Glendale Community College and to go to my job at Burger King in Glendale. The car's missing. So I'm like, well, where's this car? So I start telling, where did we park the car? Did we forget where we parked the car? I'm telling you, I don't see the car. It was a 1983 Corolla. That tells you how broke I was, right? 1983 Corolla, nothing to brag about. And finally, I made a police report. They came, we drove around. Nope, the car got stolen. 2 weeks later, they found the car in Tijuana. Anyway, so the car's stolen. So I'm sitting in the house. I lost my job at Burger King because I didn't make it that day. So that's definitely not an executive position. If you ask
So
me.
is that a 15, 16? How old were you?
I am at that time 18. I'm 18 years old at this time.
Okay.
Extremely irresponsible. My priority is one priority. I just want to have fun. And so long story short, from there, I called my dad. I said, Dad, I got nothing going on. If you can pick me up and drop me off at the recruiting station, I'm joining the Army today. So he came and picked me up, took me to Glendale, California. I signed up with Jesus Guerra. I said, if you can get me in the military in the next 2 weeks, I'm in. 2 weeks later, I was at South Carolina in the Army. My mother had no clue. She was in Iran. And I called her from South Carolina saying, Mom, I joined the Army. What are you talking about? I can't talk for too long. Just want to tell you I love you. I got to get to work. And then I stayed in the military for 3 years. So one of the best decisions I ever made was go in the military. And then afterwards, I went and worked at Bally's. I was never an executive. I was a weekend manager, was what I was, weekend assistant manager. And then I went from there, leap of faith, to start my own internet business at 21, 22 years old. And that's kind of where my venture started. I failed miserably. I was in that 50K. I came back and got a job with Morgan Stanley Dean Witter as a stockbroker. And then I stayed in the financial industry. This year, 2021, will be 20 years.
Congratulations. So would you say that an entrepreneur is made or born?
I think a little bit of both. I think some, like my kid, we go to the ocean, my oldest, and he collects shells. And then he gets the shells. He says, I have to sell this to people. So I'm walking the docks. He's just going to strangers. Do you want to buy some seashells? I'm like, buddy, you got to clean the seashells. So, sir, would you like to buy some seashells? Would you like to buy some seashells? I'm like, buddy, what are you doing? So, Dad, I'm trying to make some money. I got to sell this stuff. I didn't tell him to do that. Like, that's him. It's not his daddy. That's 100% him.
But so, it is you too, because he sees your hustle. Energy is contagious. He sees
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. I agree with you. But for me, I grew up in a family where nobody was an entrepreneur. My dad was a makeup artist and a chemist.
No way.
He makes makeup. So he makes, even till today, he makes makeup for Estee Lauder, for...
Oh, he makes, but he's not an artist. He doesn't apply the makeup.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, he makes the makeup.
So he's a chemist. Okay.
But I tell you, if he looks at you, let's just say he met you and we're at a restaurant and he meets you, he's like, I got to get something for Liana. So what do you got to get? He says, I already have an idea. So he'll go back.
Wow.
And the next time he sees you, he says, I want you to try this. I want you to use this mask. I want you to try this lipstick. The shade is that's my dad. That's how he is. So women love my dad.
That's amazing. That's a very feminine energy, and he has a balance, balance of both.
No, he has that. He definitely has that. Yes, all the women in our family, my friends, they all love him. So, but anyways, my dad wasn't an entrepreneur. He was more, my mother was a stay-home mom. So, I kind of saw entrepreneurship as a way out. Like, I really want a life. I really want to be free. This is the way where I can accelerate the process. So I think a part of it is, can you take somebody who has never sold and never done business? Can you take them from a 2 to a 6? I believe so. Can you take a 3 to a 7? I believe so. But some people are born at a 6, and sometimes they stay at a 6. So if you never use your entrepreneurship tendencies, you could stay 6 forever. And a person that's born with a 2 could end up beating you because They could be a 7. But then the 6, if they really apply their habits and their talents, they could be an 8, they could be a 9. So a part of it is born, a part of it is made. And at the end of the day, it has to come down to what this person wants to do and what kind of a life they want to live. And the sooner they figure out who they want to be and the kind of a life they want to live, they'll have an edge over their peers.
And I also think that, you know, the Army shaped you. It was a boot camp for you. It was a wake-up call for you. So that was like that push to like, hey, wake up. It's time to take your life seriously. And I feel like you actually wanted that for yourself on purpose, because you're like, you know what? I don't think anybody around me can put me into shape the way the Army will. So
I don't disagree. I actually agree with that. You know, military completely changed my life. We had a guy, a drill sergeant, and, you know, I won't even mention his name. So he was 5'8", very quiet, very calm, never raised his voice. And we would always play tough with him. Oh, we're from LA. Oh, we're from New York. And one day he says, hey, BetDavid, he gives us, it was 5 of us, says, all of you, come with me, get in the Humvee. So we get in the Humvee, he says, we're going to go on a special field training together. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, awesome, let's do it. So he's taking us out. Yes, drill sergeant. So we going out 10 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles, 40 miles. We've never been this far in the woods. I don't know where we're going with this. So he pulls us up in this place. There is no roads. There's nothing. There's nothing close to us. He gets out of the truck, very calm, takes his jacket off, hangs it off the mirror, and then he says, okay, all of you guys are big guys. All of you guys are tough guys. Who wants to go first? And we're like, drill sergeant, what do you mean by who wants to go first? Who wants to go first? Who wants to go first? I promise you, I will not touch your face. But everywhere else is fine. Who wants to fight first? And we're, drill sergeant, we don't want to hurt you. You know, we're acting like we're these professional MMA fighters. So one of the guys goes first, then the next one, then I go. Then let me tell you, by the time it was done, I wish there was a camera to record it, because I'd love to see myself get the whooping that we got. 4 of us got such a bad whooping.
wow.
Nothing faced. Everything he dealt with was here, chest and your belly. We got in the truck, and he says, moving forward, can I get a commitment from you guys? It's 100% respect. We're like, Drill Sergeant Green, absolutely. Now, he could, legally, he can't do that. If we would have done something like that today and he leaked, he probably would be arrested, you know, all this other stuff. But we had a different kind of respect in 97.
That's why it wasn't recorded.
No, that's why it wasn't recorded.
No
Yeah,
evidence.
so when we came back, he straightened us up. So when the first time him and my dad met, and my dad seeing how I'm standing right next to him, like a Doberman, like, you know, he's like just standing up straight. And he's like, what did you do to my son? He said, sir, we were able to do to your son in 3 months what you couldn't do in 18 years. And we straightened him up. But you're welcome. Here's your son back to you. So, yeah, the military, it was one of the best things that I ever did in my life.
Amazing. That's such an incredible story. So now you started your company, PHP, in 2009.
Yes.
And, you know, you have very little experience as an entrepreneur. So did you start from your own investment?
Yes.
Your own funds? There were no outside investors that contributed?
Yeah. Zero. So the first time around when I started the company in October of 2009, I had saved $500,000. So I had $500,000 on my name, and that money is money I saved from working at Transamerica, doing my side investments, everything. I got up to $500,000. And I put that $500,000 in a company. We grew it. And in 2014, I had my first round that I raised. And in 17 was my second round. I think we raised $10 million the second round. And we brought in Oscar De La Hoya, Gabriel Brenner, et cetera, et cetera. And we've grown it to what it is today. So yes, when we started, it was 100% my savings.
And you were the only, you had no partners. You were the only CEO.
Yes.
So how did you start this? Did you have your own office? Did you have a brick and mortar? Was it in your basement?
No, I had an office. I had an office in 8550 North Balboa Boulevard, Northridge. It was 4,776 square feet. And we started off out of that office with 66 agents. And then we grew it to today, 18,000 agents in 49 states, nearly 150 offices. So yes, but it was in our office. And don't get me wrong, we had other co-founders that started with me, where these are guys that started as greenies, not investors, not shareholders at the time. They were one of the agents that now they're major earners in a company. But yeah, at the beginning, I was the main money. I was the CEO and the founder, no other partners. And we just grew it. We got to work. Wasn't pretty. It was very ugly. It's like sausage. You know, you go to a birthday party and they say, does anybody want an Italian sausage or a hot dog? And we say, I'd like a sausage. And then you eat the sausage. And so this is a delicious sausage. And then you are challenged to go on YouTube and type in how is sausage actually made? If you ever watched a video of how sausage is ever made, you will never have sausage ever again, because it's so nasty what you're eating that it looks a lot better as a final product than when it's going through the process. We're the perfect ideal analogy of a sausage, because when we built the company it was very ugly, but now if you eat the sausage, you know, the food that you eat is delicious. Completely different story.
So, but you have no formal education when it comes to that. What did you do? I mean, there was really no YouTube at that time. How did you learn? Did you have a mentor along the way?
Oh, of course. I had a lot of different people that I studied, a lot of advisors that I had, a number of people I can tell you, a Dudley, a Bill. I mean, I had a Tom, a number of people that I went through who I'm the what do you think guy. I like asking, what do you think? I'm all about what do you think? Okay. So Liana, tell me, what do you think? So what do you think about this? So what do you think? So what are your thoughts? So what do you think about this?
So you're not afraid to ask for help?
No, if you ask anybody that works with me on a day-to-day basis, what is the most common question Pat asks? Literally 100% of them will tell you, what do you think? What do you think?
In other words, what do you think is, hey, can you help me out? I have, you know what I mean?
I don't think it's help you out. It's different. I'll gladly ask, guys, I need your help. Here's what I need. It's specific. If I need help, I don't mind asking, you know, if I need your help. And I do that every week. But what do you think is, I'll sit you down, Bob down, and Mary down, right? And I'll say, guys, here's what we're dealing with. We got this case, person's in this situation. Okay. This is what they're going through. You know, I have my own disposition on what I think we ought to do with this, but what are the questions you have on this thing? Well, okay. So now that you have all the questions and answer, what do you think? What would you do with something like this? I would do this. What would you do? I would do this. What would you do? So my rule of thumb is 3 people. So I like to have 3 people debate it out, and then I throw stuff in there, and then we all at the end come up with a conclusion. The best thing to do right now is X, Y, Z. And my plan originally of what I was going to do is scratch. I'm like, yeah, mine's not the best plan. Ours is the best plan. And then we go up with it. So yeah, I had a lot of mentors, a lot of great people on my mind, in my ear that helped out. And then at the same time, some of the things that we just added our own twist to it, and you know, it worked.
So, you know, in other words, it's like the mastermind. There's one thing that Napoleon Hill taught me was create a mastermind and make sure you collaborate.
Yep.
And have that contribution. And that's what you do. You know, you are such a great leader. And you don't just lead like a boss, you're a leader. You want to pull other people along the way. And I really admire that about you.
I appreciate that.
So now, what advice would you give leaders who want to open safely? They want to open their offices safely.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So like right now?
Right.
So you got a few different challenges. So number one, I have offices all across the country, and every state has a different set of guidelines than other states do. So one, you have to kind of see what the state guidelines are. Some states is by the county. So you have to follow whatever the county is going to be telling you. Each county is different. Then you have essential, non-essential, et cetera, et cetera. So let's set those things aside, right? Let's set those things aside, and let's just kind of consider, okay, let's just say your county is opening up. Your state is open. Your state never closed. Your state is at not even 50%, 25%. California did shut down. New York did. If you're non-essential, you have to be shut down, et cetera, et cetera. But let's just say you're open right now. How do you do it? So here's what we did. When the pandemic first hit, my headquarters is in Texas. So we had somewhere around 80 to 100 employees, right? We sat down as a group, and we talked to our HR, and we got attorneys online, Texas attorneys, to find out what's the right thing to do. Our CFO, Ian, took the lead and said, hey, here's what I'm getting from CDC. So within a month, Department of Health and Services came into our office, and they looked and they said, no, you guys got your stuff in order. The only thing I would tell you is put some plexiglass here. And okay, great, no problem. That's exactly what we'll do. So what we did is we had 3 wristbands in our office. One wristband is green. Green means I don't high five. I don't do this. I don't do elbows. Just don't get near me. Don't get close to me. 6 feet, please. That's red. Okay. Yellow meant I'm okay if we do one of these. Green means I'm good with handshakes. I'm comfortable with it. So if a green and a green meet each other, they can shake hands. But if a green and a red meet each other, 6 feet. If a green and a yellow meet each other, how you doing, buddy? How you doing? How's everything? So similar similar style that we put together where there was trust. Then everybody that came into work, everybody gets their temperature. Everybody gets their temp. So hey, you have fever? Nope, 98.7, 98 point this, 97.9. 101.9. You got a fever. You can't come in today. Have you been tested lately? I haven't. How do you feel? I don't feel too well. We need you to go get tested. Or, you know what, if they want to, we encourage you to go get tested. or stay home today and work out of home. Okay, great. So that's the temperature stuff that we took. Then everywhere there's sanitizers, everywhere there is hand sanitizers, everywhere there's plexiglass. And as long as you do that and you keep it safe and you go through it, and then sometimes there's some curveballs where people, you know, get COVID, and then you have to go through the phase of when first person in the office got COVID, everybody wanted to leave. Oh my gosh, what do I do? And then second time around, third time around, it was departments. Well, in this department, here's what we would do. That department has to go get tested. This department, because they've been exposed to it. So gradually we went through it, and we had taken this approach for 9 months. I think it started up March 14th, right? So April, May, 9 months. I ended up getting COVID 5 weeks ago. I got COVID for 2 weeks, and everybody who gets COVID, you know, they go through in a complete different way. Some people can't smell, taste, you know, massive headaches, just lethargic, high fever, you know, all this other stuff. I just couldn't eat anything. So I lost 20 pounds in the span of a couple of weeks, and then recovered.
Good for you.
Back.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's totally fine. So my abs looked like I was doing abs 24/7 a day, but I promise you I wasn't doing abs 24/7 a day. So I was on the COVID diet is what it was. So, but no, the point is weight came back, everything came back. So it was back to normal. We worked, we did what we did. So yeah, it's a very interesting time. It's a very sensitive time. It's a time that you have to be very extra careful, read more, be aware of what your state guidelines are doing. But at the same time, you're still running a business. And the last thing we need is more small business owners going out of business, because nearly 50% of all jobs in America are created by small business owners. If small business owners go out of business, we're going to have a massive unemployment that America doesn't want to have.
Absolutely. What's one important thing, a factor that business leaders can help women combat from being pushed out from the workforce, especially during the pandemic? What do you think is one tip that business leaders can do?
You know, for me, I follow one rule. So I remember one time my one of the girls that worked for me, Moral, when she started, she was, you know, I met her first time. She was my banker at WAMU. Think about how long ago WAMU was around. WAMU goes out of business, Chase buys them. But I would always wait to go to her because I trusted her the most. And I would say, Moral, here's what I'm going through. And one time at the bank, I got upset because one of the guys, you know, did something that was just out of line. And she came to me, she said, what upset you? How can I help? What do you need from me? What can I do to, you know, make sure this experience gets better? And I just watched the way she handled me. And I said, I want somebody like her on my team. So the following time, my wife and I were at the bank, and I started telling my wife who I'm looking for. Moral said, I don't mind taking that job. I said, you want to apply? Yeah, go ahead and apply. So she applied. This is 2010, okay? 2010. 11 years later, she's my chief reputation officer in the company. She started off as 22, 23 years old. She's a C-suite executive. She's an, you know, owner in the company. Her husband's in the company. Her husband owns a piece of the company. And I'm talking good quality of shares. So we pay dividends, nice type of equity that they own in the company for themselves. So what happened with her? Years ago, I told her how to ask me for a raise. She says, what do you mean? So I sat my entire staff down. I said, here's how you ask for a raise. And asking for a raise, in my opinion, doesn't have to do with sex, gender. It's very neutral on how to ask for a raise. How do we ask for a raise? This is what you do. Before I came here, this is what the company was doing. After I came here, this is what my department is doing. When I first came here, here's what you asked me to improve on. Today, in these 3 areas you asked me to improve on, now I'm doing this. Then the company was going through crisis. I took the initiative to do the following thing. I didn't come to you. I just took the initiative. Then we were going through one of the most challenging times of the company. I did this and I brought this. I think based on what I've been able to bring to the company, I would like to ask for a raise of XYZ. And I think the market right now is this. I think this is the right number to give to me. I suggest you consider giving me this kind of a raise. Great. So we'd step away and I said, yeah, you deserve that. Or no, I'd like to see this, but we're not going to give you this, but we'll give you this, but we'll add the comp bonus, et cetera, et cetera. What does this have to do with the question you ask? Here's what it has to do with the question you ask. The market favors those who are irreplaceable. The market favors those who are irreplaceable. You got to figure out a way to make yourself irreplaceable. I'll give you a story here that made a lot of sense to me. Years ago, there's this king who's very superstitious, very, very superstitious. There is a, what do you call the guys that make predictions? You know, the ones that read your palm and what do you call those guys?
It's a psychic?
Psychic. So there's a local psychic, okay, in this king's city, right, area that he lives in. So the psychic ends up getting together with his daughter. He cannot believe it. He wants to kill this psychic because the daughter who lives in this beautiful castle, how did he end up, you know, meeting his daughter? He's furious. He sends all his soldiers to go kill him. The psychic already knows he's about to get killed. So the psychic goes out there and says, before you kill me, I know something about the king that he needs to know. Before you kill me, and it's not good, he needs to know. As a psychic, he's going to want to know this. Please relay this message to the king first. So they contact the king. And the king, they tell the king, listen, this psychic has something about you that he wants to say. And it has to do with your future. I think you need to hear him out. And he wants to tell it to your face. He says, okay, bring him up. So they bring him up all the way to the top. And the king is sitting there and, you know, so what do you have to tell me before we kill you? He says, you know, dear Lord, you know, your king, you have to know that there's something I know it's very important that has to do with your life. What's that? I have a read on your life. And the read is, you die the day after I die. He says, did you get it? So he says, my read is, you're going to die the day after I die. He says, what do you mean? God. He says, I got this reading on you, my leader. You're going to die the day after I die. And I think it's very important for you to know that. So the king, who's very superstitious, goes away and says, we cannot kill this guy. So the king ends up bringing the guy into his family, and he ends up marrying the daughter, and he ends up getting what he wanted, and he's taken care of for the rest of his life. And he ends up outliving the king because the king ends up dying, and he lives longer, and he gets a daughter. So what's the moral of the story?
Yes.
Listen, the moral of the story is make yourself irreplaceable. I don't care what you are. Figure out a way for the market to need you, not the other way around. Because if the market needs you, guess what? They can't afford to fire you. They can't afford to get rid of you. They can't afford to not pay you what you're worth. They cannot afford to say, oh, because, you know, he doesn't have a 4-year degree, she doesn't have this. Like for me, I'm Middle Eastern. I'm like, you know, and I got into financial industry a day before 9/11, and 9/11 was done by Middle Easterns. And I'm from Iran, and I don't look like the friendliest guy when you see me. Oh my gosh, this guy's threatening. This guy's this, and you don't have a 4-year degree. There are so many. We can fire Pat first. We can fire Pat first. I made it very difficult for the market to be able to not fire me. That's how you become irreplaceable. Anybody that does that, your value goes up no matter what the economy is.
So to become a recognized expert, you have to find ways to have that education, no matter where you get that education from books, from mentors, and that's how you stood out. I feel that you have so much of life education that, you know, not necessarily you didn't go to college. That doesn't really determine who you are. So people who are listening in right now, if you're a college dropout, if you didn't go to college, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have a bright future, right? You have to know and hone in on what makes you stand out from the rest of the crowd.
There is so much truth behind what you just said right there. You know, Ray Charles and Sting, do you know what they have in common? They both had a #1 hit in 4 different decades, okay? Do you know how hard that is to do? Because, you know, the music people listen to in 1 decade, the next generation may not like that music. Like, you know, what's your favorite decade of music? 80s. Oh, you like oldies? 80s is not oldies. Oh, 80s is oldies, says a 20-year-old, but I'm 42. So to a 40-year-old, I'm an oldie. Oh, you listen to oldies, 80s. 80s is not oldies. Yes, it is. It's oldies, right? No, it's not. It's the best decade, right? So here's Ray Charles and Sting. 1 decade, #1 hit. Another decade, #1 hit. Another decade, #1 hit. One more decade, #1 hit. Wow. How do you do that? To stay relevant decade after decade after decade, one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And in order to stay relevant in business, in world, social, whatever you want to do, it's constantly having to recreate yourself. You cannot be the same you that you were 30 years ago. You have to recreate yourself. You cannot be the same you were a decade ago. It's constant recreation mode. And nothing is more annoying and painful than constantly having to recreate yourself. Because all that says is your existing you isn't good enough to be relevant 2 years from now. Your existing you has to improve and change to be relevant 2 years from now. You may be cool today. You ain't going to be cool 2 years from now. And we see this all the time, by the way, with Hollywood stars and athletes. It's constant recreation mode, and it's not easy to do.
I mean, just talk about what happened yesterday. Tom Brady, I don't want to go off topic, but look, this man, I mean, like, I don't care if you're Tom Brady or not. just being the man that he is and proving everyone wrong
Yeah.
at 43 that he can kick someone's ass like that. That was historic.
Ridiculous what he did yesterday at 43, going up against a 25-year-old guy who's the
Yes.
best player in the league and getting up there and doing what he's doing. And
Right.
he's one of a kind.
So you have a list of principles that you recite with your family almost comically all the time. Do you ever update that list? Do your principles ever evolve?
Yes, as they age, they evolve. As they age, they evolve. At this point of the game, they're good with what they have and what they're doing right now. So, for example, the basics are, you know, what are 4 things we do as a family? Lead, respect, improve, love. Great. Like the other night, the kids, we finally put the Xbox in the house in Boca. Okay, because we moved here from Dallas 2.5 weeks ago. So finally the Xbox is up. And if my oldest reads 30 pages on Saturday, Sunday, every day they read 30 pages and 20 pages, and they have to make 52 shots every day of basket, right? If they do that Saturday, Sunday, they get video game for a couple hours. So it's Saturday, and the Xbox is finally uploaded, and it's on the TV, and they can play it. And next thing you know, middle one says, "You never let me pick the game." The oldest one says, "But we have to play this." Yeah. And they start screaming, okay, about this Xbox. And I said, "Guys, turn off the TV, go upstairs. You guys are not going to play any Xbox. I don't even want to hear it. If you guys for 2.5 weeks you've been asking for it, we finally got it up, and now you want to fight, not happening. Go straight to your room. You're going straight to bed." So they go upstairs. While they're going upstairs, I hear them. "It's your fault. You could have just picked the game." "No, it's your fault. You never let me." And I'm listening to them, and I'm listening to what they're fighting about. So they go upstairs. Okay. They go upstairs, and then I walk up, and I go into their rooms. "Dylan, come here." It was a Melville's room. "Come here." He gets in his bed, and Tico's sitting right in front of me, my oldest. I said, "So what happened today?" "He didn't let me do this." Okay. I said, "Okay, perfect." I said, "Okay. So let me explain to you guys what's going to happen moving forward." "What's that?" "What you showed me today is that you two together don't know how to solve problems. And if you don't know how to solve problems and you need me every single time, you're not leaders yet. So what are the 4 things we do as a family? Lead, respect, improve, and love." I said, "Okay, great. What are 4 things we pray for? Courage, wisdom, tolerance, understanding." "Do we bully?" "No." "Do we get bullied?" "No." "Okay, perfect. Tonight, you had the video game." I said, "Tico, whose fault was it tonight?" "Dylan's." "Dylan, whose fault was it tonight?" "Tico's." I said, "Nope, it was both your fault tonight." "Why?" I said, "Tico, last time you guys played video game, who picked it?" "I did." "So it was his turn, wasn't it?" "Yeah." "So you don't let him do it?" "No." I said, "Dylan, you started complaining and crying right off the bat. Is that something we do as a family?" "No." I said, "Both of you guys are responsible for this. Here's what I want you to do." So we went through the whole process of things I wanted them to improve on that night. And then we got on our knees. I said, "We're going to pray. And here's what we're going to pray for. We're going to pray for a list of things you're grateful for, because tonight's behavior is a reaction of a person who is not grateful. Close your eyes, turn off the lights, let's pray." Who wants to go first? "I'll go first, Daddy." And Dylan starts. "I'm thankful for he goes through whatever.
I love it.
Yeah,
I mean, gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Changes everything. The way the brain is formed, and just a little bit of gratitude each day for a simple thing like "Thank you, God, for walking," or "Thank you for just being with my dad." What you're teaching them is so priceless, and that's amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, I appreciate that. The challenge with like us. I remember one time I went to my dad. I said, "Dad, who do you love more, me or my sister?" And my sister are like, "Yeah, I think he loves you more." "No, he loves me more." He says, "Okay." And fortunately, he only had 2 kids. He says, "This one is you, and this thumb is your sister. If I were to cut both of these thumbs, which one would bleed more?" And I'm like, "The same." I said, "That's how much I love you guys," right? I mean, listen, that's a Middle Eastern metaphor, which Americans may say, that's a scary metaphor. Why would you cut your thumb? The moral of the story is it's all about building leaders. Everything in life is about building leaders. And it starts off with you, then it's your kids, then it's the people around you. And hopefully at the end of the day, when your time comes, people look back. So certain values and principles I teach to the kids. I just finished a book called Motive by Patrick Lencioni. Highly recommend. First of all, I highly recommend any book he writes, you read. Highly. Patrick
What's
Lencioni.
the author again?
Patrick Lencioni.
Okay.
So he wrote a book called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. He wrote a book called 5 Temptations of a CEO. He wrote a book called The Ideal Team Player. And the one I read was Motive. I finished was Motive. It's a good book. And one of the things he talks about in the book Motive is the challenge CEOs and executives have. CEOs and executives think just because you said something to your staff, they should implement it right off the bat. He says, the average CEO executive needs to repeat the same message that he wants his teams to follow 7 times before the team thinks you're serious about it. Not once, not twice, 7 times. Half the battle of leading anybody you're leading is the ability to have patience to re-remind, re-encourage, reignite, reunify, retrain, redevelop. Leaders they're in the game of the re. It's not if you're impatient, kind of like me, I'm not a patient guy. Historically, I've never been known as a patient person in my 20s. I learned patience later on in my life. You have to be patient to remind.
Which leads to the sequence you teach in the next 5 moves, right?
Yep.
Everything is a sequence.
Yep.
In order to have that sequence, which means you have to do it every day, you have to have the patience, and you're redoing it, right? It comes back to it ties into what you teach in the book, which I love.
Yeah, it's constant and never ending.
Right. So now you seem to take a lot of ideas from the mobsters.
Yes.
Do you wish you were part of that world?
I don't wish to be part of that world, but if my father was one, I would have probably been part of that world, because I would have admired my dad and I would have wanted to follow his footsteps, and I probably would have made a decent one if I would have had a father that was that. But you know, the one thing about specifically the Italian mob, that followed their guidelines that they had, you know, these were very strong strategists. The only difference between the mob, where they cross the line, is life is on the line. Okay, right. They can take your life. Right. If you almost took everything, if you took that one part out and the crime part out, the RICO, all of that stuff, and you just showed their right way of doing business, their values, women, how you respect this, and some of the other stuff that they did, but most of it was values. You know, it's a lot of things that applies to business, because the world of business is not pretty. You know, it's not a pretty world. You know, you don't get into business and like, oh my gosh, it's a great business. I love how business is. Everybody's so nice. That's not how things work. Everybody's nice to you when you're small. Everybody likes you when you're little and cute. Oh, Johnny, we want the best for you. We wish you nothing but the best.
Just don't get better than us.
Just don't get bigger than us. The moment you get bigger than us, you bad person, you know. Right. Right. I'm sorry, what just happened? Yeah, I mean, just because, right. You know, so you have to understand that comes with the territory. There's a video of Elon Musk online where he's crying. I don't know if you've seen it or not, where it's like, all of these people I admired, now they're talking trash about me. I don't understand. So he starts crying. It's a 60-minute interview. Like, wow. Elon Musk crying? He said, I admired these people. These are my heroes. These are my this. And now they're saying stuff that they're saying about me. He said, does this hurt? A lot. You know, now he's a $200 billion guy, and these guys who were his heroes. So it's part of the territory. You have to be able to accept it, that will happen. So yes, you know, it's slightly a different ballgame when you start competing at the highest level.
And, you know, showing vulnerability the way he just showed, you know, to show that way, you know, to cry, you know, being the richest man, and to cry, that also shows another characteristic to a business person. That means that don't be afraid to show all your colors, because the more vulnerable you are to success, to people around you, I feel like being stiff won't really get you to places. You have to have that. I mean, I want to take your opinion on that. What is your take on vulnerability?
So, okay. So unfortunately, and fortunately, here's how life works. So in my experience, in the world of business, so you come up, you're innocent, you're childlike. Okay, oh my gosh, hey, I have so much respect for you. It's so awesome. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That was such a big deal. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm meeting you for the first time. Thank you. Oh, it's okay. And so let's just say you have a very high level of ambitions and competition, and you're not going to slow down. You're very curious. You're constantly going. You're a great worker. You outwork, you out improve, you out strategize, and you can last a long time, and you're going about your business. And then next thing you know, you're a little bit too open with one guy at work, and he uses it against you. You're like, ooh, okay, huh, interesting. So then your skin gets a little thicker. You're like, oh, that was interesting. So then you go and go, okay, you have partnership, and a partner kind of, you know, backstabs. You're like, I've known this guy for 6. Okay. Then you go into, and then one of your friends says something about you that 3 people validate. That's what he's saying. Like, but I went to high school with that guy. How could he say something like that? And you're going to go into, and then all of a sudden, so then what happens to you? Your level of maturity gets to a point. It's like a saying that you know, the quote, when a man with money meets a man with experience. The man with the experience leaves with the money. The man with the money leaves with the experience. I'll say that one more time. When a man with money meets a man with experience, the man with the experience leaves with his money. The man with the money leaves with his experience, right? So yesterday, okay, what time does it? Give me an idea. 2:45 or what's the?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, 2:45.
So yesterday, Tom Brady, he's the man with experience. He meets Pat Mahomes, the man with money, $504 million contract, biggest ever in the history of sports, period, right? U.S. The man with experience, Brady, left with the money. The man with the money left with the experience, right? In the business world, the longer you're around, you will be a little bit more careful about who you open up to and who you don't, based on the track record and the level of trust you have for that person. So I can see why leaders later on in life, their skin gets thicker and thicker and thicker, and the amount of people they trust gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And that just comes with experience. Unfortunately, that just comes with experience. But my dad used to say, if you have one person you trust 100%, you are more luckier than a man having 1,000 people trusting 90%.
100%.
Just remember that. So it's depth and value with a handful of relationships that you want to have eventually. That's the goal in life, I think. When you have those 5 strong people around you, then you can pretty much go take over the world if you wanted to, if that was the vision, because you got people that you can trust.
Thank you for that tip. One of the last questions I would like to ask before we wrap up this conversation is, what do you think of using debt to grow your business? Is it a dangerous idea? What is the best way for entrepreneurs to raise funds to expand?
That's a great question. I mean, you know, for me, raising debt to grow your business, it's in the world of business, it's a religious question. Some people say it's the biggest, dumbest move you'll ever make, right? Some people will say, good, go do it. I will say, at what phase? Meaning, phase is at the beginning, and you don't have your own money, you want to go raise debt? I'm not for it. You know, at the beginning, like I wouldn't put my money into a guy that's never won, that's never done anything, and he wants that. Maybe I'll give him some angel money, 20 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand. But to go raise millions of dollars of debt or get into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt when you don't have money coming in, at the beginning, I don't recommend it. Later on, I mean, depends on what kind of money. Like right now, if you raise debt and the interest rates are nothing and you're paying 2, 3, 4%, it's free money today, because rates by 2023, when Powell brings it back up, money's not going to be cheap. Money is so cheap today. So if you can raise 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, $100 million, $1 billion of debt at low interest rates, and your company is growing, cash flowing, netting, high EBITDA, profitable. So it's all on at what phase of the company you raise that money in.
Those are amazing tips. Thank you for that. So to wrap up this conversation, what makes a woman in your eyes?
What makes a woman in my eyes?
Right.
I don't know. When I think about women, in my eyes, I see peace of mind. I see confident. I see bringing a level of crisis lower. I see somebody that gives you an insight or a blind spot that you weren't paying attention to, because sometimes, okay, recognition, we're winning. Like, whoa. Hey, just feedback. Just, you have a little bit of a blind spot. Just keep this in mind. Watch this angle that you're taking here. Just be prepared for that. Ooh, okay, thank you for that insight. I wasn't paying it. Thank you. So I think that insight, it's an eyeball and a way of looking at the world that I don't look at, you know. And sometimes all you need is somebody else's perspective. Especially women have intuition, I don't know what gift that is, you know. It's a I'm surprised the greatest poker player in the world is not a woman, you know, because they have a certain intuition and read that gives them an advantage that others don't have. Now, I will tell you a complete different perspective. My daughter has got my temper. Okay. My daughter's got daddy's temper. My daughter she's going to get what she wants, period. Okay. If she uses her looks, which she's got these beautiful green eyes, like she's got my big eyes, but mommy's eyes. So color. So she's got these eyes and her hair curly, and she's so like sweet, and she's so girly. We can't get her. Like today, her mom was trying to get her to wear her new white shoes. We got her, but no, I want to wear my sprinkle, you know, my pink shoes that I wear every day. Oh my gosh. But you know what happens with her? She gets what she wants. So then I have women like that who are determined, competitive, strong, tough to compete with in a marketplace because they have a complete different angle, because they have the ability to do business with both men and women. Sometimes men can only do business with men because women are like, I don't fully trust you yet. Where women have the edge to say, well, I like doing business with women, but then women can do business with women as well. I see complete different dynamic in the world of business. And by the way, today, if you look at what's going on right now today in the economy, in the marketplace, the edge gradually is going in a different direction. It's going in a direction with whoever thinks the biggest. If you want to go out and compete in a marketplace, go on and compete in a marketplace. But that's kind of how I view that.
You know, it's interesting that you said that women have that intuition, because right now more than ever, women traders, because of that intuition, we're more successful than men actually when it comes to trading. That's a little like an inside statistics that we are much, I mean, there are not a lot of us in there, but those who are in there are very successful.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So definitely something that women should be getting more into is trading.
Very cool.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Patrick. Thank you. It was such a pleasure to learn from you. And, you know, I'm here cheering you on your success, and much more success to you.
To you as well. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you.
Take care. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.